Tonight, a story that could redefine the very fabric of our economy, a story of power, politics, and a world on edge. Vladimir Putin, Russia's president, has refused to sell oil to the United States. And the ripple effect? Experts warn of an economic shock that could shake America to its core. Let's start with the headlines, because the gravity of this situation cannot be overstated. The United States, the world's largest consumer of oil, has just been told an unequivocal no by one of the planet's largest energy suppliers. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has refused to sell oil to the Trump administration. Pause for a moment and consider what that really means. This is not a routine trade disagreement. This is not a minor hiccup in the global energy markets. This is a full-blown geopolitical earthquake. Why an earthquake? Because oil is not just a commodity. It is the lifeblood of the global economy. From fueling our cars and trucks to powering factories and heating homes, oil underpins nearly every aspect of modern life. When a nation like Russia, which sits atop some of the world's most abundant energy reserves, closes its doors to American buyers, the consequences are immediate, profound, and unavoidable. For the United States, this is a double-edged sword. On one side, the economy faces an imminent shock. Gas prices could soar overnight. Supply chains, already stressed, could buckle. Manufacturers and farmers alike could find themselves squeezed by rising operational costs. Ordinary Americans, meanwhile, would feel the pinch at the gas pump, in their grocery bills, and even in the electricity that keeps their homes running. On the other side, this refusal sends a powerful geopolitical signal. Putin is asserting leverage in the global arena, demonstrating that energy is not just about economics. It's about influence, strategy, and power. By denying oil to the United States, Russia is effectively reminding the world that global energy markets are interconnected and that no country, not even the United States, operates in isolation. And let's be clear, this is not a distant problem. The tremors of this decision will ripple across financial markets, political corridors, and international alliances. Washington will have to navigate a complex maze of domestic pressure, economic recalibration, and diplomatic maneuvering, all while a superpower like Russia signals that it will act decisively to protect its interests. In short, this is not just news, it is a warning. A warning that the global balance of energy, economics, and power is shifting, and that the consequences for the United States may be swift, severe, and unavoidable. To truly understand the gravity of Vladimir Putin's decision, we need to pause and look at the stakes. And the stakes could not be higher. The United States imports millions of barrels of crude oil every single day. This isn't just a statistic. It's the bloodstream of our economy. That oil fuels our cars, heats our homes in the winter, powers our factories, and keeps industries running across every sector, from transportation and manufacturing to agriculture and technology. Now, layer on top of that a global economy still trying to recover from the pandemic. Supply chains are stretched thin, distribution networks remain fragile, and inventories are often lower than in pre-pandemic years. In that context, the margin for error is razor thin. Any sudden disruption, particularly from a supplier as significant as Russia, doesn't just rattle the markets, it sends shockwaves across the entire economic system. When a key player like Russia steps back, the consequences are immediate and multifaceted. First, energy prices spike, and they can do so quickly. Gasoline, diesel, and heating oil costs begin to climb, sometimes overnight. Second, shortages emerge. Factories may face higher operational costs or even temporary shutdowns. Logistics networks strain under the pressure of scarce resources. And third, inflation surges. Every price tag in American life is affected, from groceries to home utilities to the cost of shipping goods across the country. And let's be clear, this is not a minor market fluctuation, the kind we might shrug off or write about as a passing blip. This is a potential economic cascade. One event triggers another and another, creating a domino effect that touches every corner of American life. Families notice it at the gas pump. Small businesses feel it in rising overhead. Farmers struggle with higher transportation and fertilizer costs. Industries face tighter margins, layoffs, or production slowdowns. In short, this is not just a question of politics or international rivalry. It is a question of economic survival and stability. A single geopolitical decision, a refusal to sell oil, has the power to disrupt the everyday lives of millions of Americans. And as global oil markets watch and react, the reverberations could be felt far beyond U.S. borders, shaping international alliances, trade relationships, and the broader balance of power in ways that will take years to fully understand. The question now is not simply how the U.S. will respond, but how fast, how effectively, and how much damage can be avoided before these tremors ripple through every household, every business, and every corner of the economy. But why now? And why target the United States specifically? These are not idle questions. They strike at the heart of global power dynamics. Analysts across the globe are pointing to one central theme: leverage. This move by Vladimir Putin is not reactive. It is deliberate. It is a message, a clear, unmistakable signal that Russia will not be dictated to even by the world's largest economy. To understand the stakes, we need to think about oil not as a mere commodity, but as a tool of power. Oil fuels economies, yes, but it also fuels influence. It shapes alliances, determines political strategies, and gives those who control it an almost unparalleled ability to sway events far beyond their borders. And right now, Putin is using that leverage with precision. By cutting off access to one of the largest energy markets in the world, he is forcing the United States economically, politically, diplomatically into a position it may not have anticipated. This isn't just about supply and demand curves or market prices rising at the pump. This is about power projection on a global scale. It's about sending a signal to other nations that Russia, despite sanctions, despite international pressure, remains a force that can influence the global stage. And for the Trump administration, which has already faced scrutiny over its foreign policy decisions, this refusal is another test, one with the potential to expose vulnerabilities, test alliances, and reshape diplomatic priorities. Consider the broader implications. If the U.S. cannot secure oil from one of the most significant producers in the world, it must turn elsewhere, to the Middle East, to emerging markets, or to domestic alternatives that may not yet be fully ready to meet demand. Each alternative carries costs, delays, and political consequences. Each shift represents another ripple in a global system that is already fragile. And there's a message here for the global audience, too. Geopolitics is no longer abstract. Decisions made in Moscow or Washington don't just stay in those capitals. They reverberate across continents, affect economies, and shape the lives of everyday people. From families filling their gas tanks to industries shipping goods worldwide. In short, this refusal to sell oil is more than a trade decision. It is a calculated geopolitical maneuver. It is power in action. And for the United States, it is a moment of reckoning, a reminder that in the complex game of global politics, every move has consequences, and no nation, no matter how large, is immune from the strategic calculus of others. The fallout from Russia's refusal to sell oil to the United States could be immediate, dramatic, and far-reaching. Wall Street is already jittery, with investors closely watching energy stocks, commodity markets, and the broader indexes for signs of turbulence. Oil prices are soaring, not gradually, but in leaps that ripple across industries and borders. And while Americans are already feeling the impact at the gas pump, economists warn that this may be just the beginning, merely the tip of an iceberg whose full mass has yet to break the surface. If this refusal persists, the implications extend far beyond fluctuating gas prices. Businesses could face critical shortages of fuel, which powers not just vehicles, but machinery, delivery networks, and essential operations. Manufacturing could slow. Industries may struggle to meet demand, and productivity across multiple sectors could take a hit. For a country whose economy relies so heavily on energy as the lifeblood of commerce, this is a significant vulnerability. The ripple effects are not abstract. They hit the everyday lives of Americans. Jobs could be lost as companies tighten belts, production costs rise, and logistical challenges mount. Prices for consumer goods could increase, creating strain on household budgets already stretched by inflation and other economic pressures. In essence, what we are witnessing is not just a market reaction. It is the pressure of a geopolitical chess game played on a global stage, with the United States as a key piece in a much larger strategic contest. And the truth is, the longer this standoff continues, the greater the risk of cascading consequences. A single decision by a foreign leader is now shaping domestic economic realities, influencing policy debates in Washington, and forcing Americans to confront the delicate interconnectedness of global energy, geopolitics, and the economy. The stakes could not be higher, and the clock is already ticking. History has a way of teaching us harsh lessons, particularly when it comes to energy. The oil embargo of the 1970s is a stark example. Back then, oil prices didn't just climb, they skyrocketed, sending shockwaves through markets, governments, and households alike. The crisis reshaped politics, altered foreign policy priorities, and eroded public trust in institutions that were unprepared to respond. It was a wake-up call, one that forced the United States to confront the fragile foundation of its energy dependency. Fast forward to today, and the parallels are striking. Though the modern situation is far more complex, more connected, and in many ways more volatile. Global energy markets are now intricately linked with geopolitics, finance, and technology in ways that 1970s policymakers could scarcely have imagined. The same kind of supply disruption we are seeing from Russia now doesn't just influence gas prices. It affects international trade, corporate strategy, currency stability, and even the political fortunes of leaders. Now, it is true that the United States is in a different position than it was 50 years ago. We have a more diversified energy portfolio, shale oil production, renewable energy sources like wind and solar, and a wider network of global trading partners. On paper, this should provide some insulation, but here's the critical point. None of these alternatives are a switch you can flip overnight. Shale production takes time to ramp up. Renewable infrastructure requires months or years of expansion. International supply chains are themselves under strain. In other words, the clock is ticking, and the economy may not have the luxury of time if Russia keeps the taps closed. And let's not forget the human element. Americans will feel the impact in real time. Families filling their gas tanks, businesses adjusting budgets for rising energy costs, industries scrambling to secure resources. You know, these are not abstract numbers on a chart. They are real-world consequences of geopolitical maneuvering. The lesson from history is clear. When energy supply is disrupted, the ripple effects extend far beyond the commodity itself. It touches politics, economics, and daily life. And in a globalized, hyper-connected world, the stakes are higher than ever. The 1970s oil embargo reshaped America decades ago. Today, a refusal by Russia to sell oil could redefine the economic and geopolitical landscape of the 21st century, unless swift strategic action is taken immediately. So what can the United States do in the face of this unprecedented challenge? On the surface, the options seem straightforward. Diversify energy sources, tap into strategic petroleum reserves, and engage in high-stakes negotiations with other oil-producing nations. But as with most geopolitical dilemmas, the reality is far more complicated. Each potential move carries its own set of risks, costs, and consequences. Some visible, others lurking just beneath the surface. Take diversification, for example. The United States has made significant strides in expanding domestic production of shale oil and developing renewable energy sources. Yet scaling up these alternatives quickly enough to offset a disruption of this magnitude is no small task. Renewable infrastructure can take years to deploy. And while shale can increase output, it requires time, investment, and labor, factors that cannot be turned on instantly. Then there is the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, a tool designed for precisely this type of emergency. Releasing reserves can provide temporary relief, but it is a finite solution. Use it too aggressively, and the safety net disappears. Hold back, and the economic pressure on Americans and businesses intensifies. The timing, scale, and messaging around such a release are as much political as they are economic. Negotiating with other oil-producing nations presents its own challenges. While allies in the Middle East, Africa, or Latin America might step in to fill the gap, every agreement comes with trade-offs: higher prices, long-term contracts, geopolitical concessions, and the delicate balancing of international relationships. Every decision in this arena sends a signal to the global market and to rivals about American priorities, vulnerabilities, and resolve. And here's the key point. This is never just about energy. It is about leverage. It is about influence. Every move the United States makes is observed on a global stage where decisions ripple across borders, markets, and the lives of ordinary people. The question is not simply whether America can secure the oil it needs. It is whether the nation can respond with strategy, resilience, and a measure of foresight that matches the gravity of the situation. This is a moment that tests leadership, patience, and diplomatic acumen. It is a moment where energy policy becomes national security policy, economic policy, and foreign policy all at once. The stakes could not be higher, and the world is watching, because how the United States reacts now will reverberate for years to come, shaping not just the economy, but the balance of power on the global stage. The refusal by Russia to sell oil to the United States isn't just a headline. It's a warning about what happens when energy, politics, and economics collide. And it's a reminder that in today's world, no nation, not even the United States, operates in isolation. As we watch this story unfold, one thing is certain: the stakes are high, and the outcome will affect every American, in their wallets, in their communities, and in the very future of our economy. Visual dramatic fade out. News ticker. Energy crisis looms. Geopolitical tensions rise. Voiceover. This is Rachel Maddow. We'll keep tracking it, and we'll keep asking the hard questions, because the world is changing, and so must